So I just started recording, which we've been asked to do for this. So everybody can hear me still? We're good? Okay. First of all, thanks for being here. Second of all, I am not an IT person at all. I just use Zoom a lot for work. And so that's why I'm assuming I'm here. So if anybody, as we go along, has any other ideas, please give us your expertise and help us out. So I think the first thing I'd like to do is try to go over some Zoom etiquette, kind of what's expected of all of us when we're joining Zoom. To do this, I'm going to go to a whiteboard, and that's under our share screen. We'll get into this in more depth, but I'm going to share a whiteboard with you. Can somebody, when that pops up, can somebody indicate to me that that's there?
It's up.
Okay. So this is under your share screen feature, and I think it's really good for teaching when you're using a whiteboard, and you can do text or drawing, check marks. You can have other, all participants can actually add to the whiteboard if needed. And again, we'll go over all that later. But as far as etiquette goes, I think the first thing that I've noticed in not just church Zoom, but any Zoom I've been a part of, has been the mute button. And so it's just appropriate for when we first come into the meeting and when we're not talking, to make sure that we're muted. And when we do talk, we want to make sure that we're watching out for the background noises. And granted, we can't control that all the time, but that's kind of the standard, is when you first come into a meeting is to get muted. As a host, I'll show in a minute, you actually, if you're the host of a meeting, you can mute everybody else, and you have control over that, and you can ask them to unmute. So that's the first one. The second one is I want to just talk about video a little bit. So if a lot of times we take video off, and that's a pretty common practice. Just so you know, that's for your own bandwidth of your internet at home, and that'll help things run smoother on your computer if you have limited bandwidth. But it doesn't do much for other computers that are involved in the meeting. It just has to do with your own bandwidth. When you are talking, whether you're the host or whether you're making a comment, it's nice if when you're making that comment that you put your video on, so you unmute yourself and put your video on. And those buttons we'll cover in a minute. They're some of the more simple buttons to use. Also, things to think about when we're talking about video is angle and lighting. And so when I've seen participants who, I'm just going to show a bad example here, who are kind of like this, and we're all seeing their nose hairs when you're doing that, and that's just not a good etiquette. Also, if your camera is just above your eye line, it can help with double chin issues. I don't have that because of my beard, but that can be something to consider and think about. I have people coming in, so let me just grab them quick. Okay, so let's see, what else with video? And this has to do with not just video, but all of Zoom, is as you're doing things on Zoom, there's this built-in delay as it goes through the technology and through the internet and all that stuff. And so we need to be just cognizant of how that works because we can get ahead of ourselves and the information isn't getting across. And so it's nice if that's going on, if there's too much of a delay, it's nice for others to let the host know or something like that. And that can be done through chat, and we'll go over that in a minute. Okay. So that's the processing time. And then another kind of the last one we'll go over is to show up to the Zoom on time. Actually, to be a little bit early is great. Every Zoom meeting I've had so far hasn't really started exactly on time, because there's this processing of getting people into the meeting and that kind of thing. So it's just good to be available, as I admit people late, but it's good to be available and ready to go as soon as we can, even a few minutes early when it comes to that. So are there any questions about common etiquette? I mean, there's lots of other things out there that are talked about, like don't eat during a Zoom meeting or that kind of thing, but that's hard to do. It like this one's over lunch, so that's hard to do sometimes. If there are questions, we can go over those in a little bit. So I'm going to stop screen sharing for just a minute. Oh, actually, I'm just going to stop the whiteboard. I am going to screen share though, so everybody can see what I'm doing. Okay. So can everyone see my my screen? Could somebody give me a thumbs up or something like that?
I'm just seeing my
see
own
it.
screen, David.
You're just seeing your own screen?
Yeah, and I'm seeing our participants along the top row.
Okay. Let's see.
I think we're all seeing what you're seeing. It has the participants and you're moving your mouse around.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're seeing your screen, but you have Michelle Weaver on the thing.
Full screen.
Okay. Yeah, I have my full screen where I've set it up so I can show Zoom controls. Normally Zoom controls are not part of screen sharing, but I set it up so everybody could see what I'm doing there. So let's just go over the controls real quick. If you guys will, and this should be on your screen too, but here on the bottom left is our mute. That's obviously if it's I wasn't being heard there for a sec. To unmute, you can either click that button or you can just, if you're on a computer, you can press your space bar and that'll do that. Obviously, there's the stop video on and off. The security button is mostly for hosts. So let me go over kind of what these are. I keep getting interrupted by folks. So locking a meeting, once the meeting's going, if I hit that button, nobody else could come in. It would lock everybody else out from coming in. And then you have all these, I'm going to skip the hide profile pictures, but if you have all these things you can allow participants to do or not to do. Right now, I have it so that nobody else can screen share but me, but everybody else can chat, rename themselves, unmute themselves, start and stop their own video. If you have a troublesome participant, you can even remove them from the meeting if you need to as host. So as host, you have a lot of control of what's going on. As a participant, Zoom doesn't give you as many controls. So I'm going to go now to the participants button, and we'll talk a little bit. Give me a, Nicola, give me a thumbs up when you see my participant list there. Awesome. So on this, there's a whole bunch you can do as a host, and some things you can do as a participant. So like as a host, if I wanted the Humphreys to unmute, I could just hover over here and I could click the unmute. I also could come in here and click on that. I don't know if you guys saw what I did, but this more button. And so this is just with the Humphreys, but I could stop their video. I could make them the host. I could make them a co-host. I could rename them on what's showing up on the screen. I have it set so as participants, you guys can rename yourselves. So often there's some like built-in name that you have in your computer, and that comes up on Zoom, like, oh, what was Brother Brent Nielsen, like his gaming name or whatever came up, which is really cool, but I didn't know who it was, and nor did anybody else. So that's something that you can take care of at that time. There's a lot of options I won't go over. You can put people in the waiting room and remove them here, and even create a report if you wanted to, but we're not going to do any of that. But there's just a lot of options as host under there. One thing I am going to do is I'm going to just go in and I'm going to make Brother Bailey a co-host. So now that Brother Bailey's a co-host, he has all those options that I have as the host now. So as I'm doing stuff, he can be admitting people, he can be doing all that. So I use that a lot when I'm at work, because I may be in presentation mode, but I need somebody else to handle some of the logistics. And so that's an important feature there.
David?
Yes.
If I may, you have the waiting room enabled. And so you keep getting interrupted with people waiting to be let in. If you undo that, that waiting, take the check off the waiting room enabled, then people can come in when they show up. You don't have to keep getting interrupted.
And that menu, this one?
It's on your security when you go to the security button.
Okay, I just did it here too. So it's on the participant one. So enable waiting room. And then there.
If you open that security button, you'll see the check mark was on enable waiting room. If you uncheck that, then people can come and join the meeting without you having
without me doing it. Great.
You've taken the check mark off, so now people can come in at any time.
Awesome.
Without interrupting you.
Thanks for that, Brother Weaver. Let's see what else under the participants. So you can invite people here, and so this is pops up a list of all my contacts that I have in my Zoom. The one I use the most is I just copy the link and then I go to an email and paste that in there and email it. So you can email directly if you've connected your Zoom account to your email account. I have not, so because it's my personal account and I'm working off of my work Zoom with USU. So, but that's you can invite people directly if you're missing somebody in the meeting, or if they're texting you and saying, hey, my link's not working. That's a way to do it. You also have this mute all. So if you have you want to quickly, somebody's forgot to mute themselves, or there's multiple people unmuted, you can hit that and it'll make sure everyone gets muted. You also have this ... which are your other options. And so you can see here, I have checked. So when you first come in, it'll automatically mute people, but I allow them to unmute themselves. They can rename themselves. You can set up to play a sound when people come in, but most of the time that's kind of annoying once you have a meeting going. And then Brother Weaver just talked about our enable room. And here's another place you can lock the meeting and not allow any more participants to come in. So that's kind of the features of the participants button. You can go in there and find yourself and hover over your name and click the more button, and you can see what options are available to you as a participant, and they'll be different than what I have as a host. So I'll let you do that on your own here as we go. Any questions about the participants feature? As a host, that's where I probably spend most of my time as a host when I'm managing a Zoom meeting, is in the participants. I'm gonna skip the polls here. This is a way to ask questions to all your participants and have them come in and answer, and it'll show some data. But that's a feature of a paid account, not the free account. So we might come back to that, but I'm going to go over to the chat button now. So here in the chat button, you can see all the chats that have been going on, and it'll tell you who you're chatting with. So here's me and the Weavers, me and Brother Bailey. Here's Sister El Bakri sending me a chat. So a lot of communication can happen in the chat that won't interrupt the meeting. And you can, if you come down here to the chat box, so this is where you actually type down here on the bottom right. Right now I'm set for direct message. So I'm only chatting with Brother Bailey. So you can select individuals, like that one would only send it to the Lees, the message. Or you can pick everyone in a meeting and then send that message, and it would go out to the entire group. As a host, you can control that. You can remove the ability of participants to chat with everybody or even with others. But the default is to have it available to everybody in a meeting. So this is a great way to ask questions without being interrupted or interrupting as the meeting's going on. But you have to open up your chat box to see what's going on. If you don't, you might get a quick flash of a notification and it goes away. And if you're not paying attention, you missed it and it's just sitting there. So I usually have the chat window open when I'm in a meeting. And see, here's the Nielsen's let me know that Brent's gaming is T-Bone, which I like, and I've started to call him Brother T-Bone. But at any rate, that's an example of, if you go into participants, you can change your name and let everybody know what's going on. So that's the chat. There is some options here. So this is where I, as a host, can control what participants are doing. I can let them not chat with anybody. I can let them only chat with me. I can let them chat with the whole group or nobody, or I can do everybody and individually. Okay. So any questions there on the chat window? If I may be going fast, again, this is recorded if you want to come back through and look at it. So I'm going to close out on chat just for a second. Well, actually, I'm gonna, instead of closing it, I'm gonna make it a pop out, and I can kind of keep it over here if something comes in. So I'm gonna go and talk a little bit more about screen sharing now. So this is an important feature, especially as the host. So here, now I'm already screen sharing, but here, when you first hit screen share, these are what the options come up. And generally the first option is going to be whatever screen is on your computer, your main screen. And if it's highlighted in blue, that's what it'll share. And then once it's highlighted, you come over here and click the share button. I'm going to go into the whiteboard in a minute, but we'll skip that for now. This iPhone, iPad, I'm not actually sure what that is. I don't have an iPhone or iPad, and maybe if I did, it would link up and I could share what's going on that screen. I don't know. And then, so here's a window I have open in my internet, in my Chrome, and I only have one screen right here, but it's just a window that's open in Chrome, and so it's available to share. So you can open up multiple windows on your computer, and you can share what's going on in that window, not necessarily what's going on the screen, and those become available here. If you're going to do something with sound or video on your share, then I would click these buttons here, share sound or optimize for video clip to make the best presentation of that going forward. So this is all in your basic part of your share. If you go to advanced, there's other things that you can do. I'll let you explore those on your own, but like if you only wanted to share a part of a screen, you can do that here. If you have a second camera, you can deal with that here. You could also grab files from the cloud and share those specific files if you have Google Drive, or like I have Box, so that's what's pulling up. Thanks. So Jackie's told us that, and you can see that chat there, if you have a document open, you can also share that. So it doesn't have to be a web page. It can be anything, any window that's popping up on your screen. So I'll go back to the basics. Okay, so I'm going to go into whiteboard because I think when we're teaching, this could be pretty useful. So I'm going to share that, and it went back to our previous screen there. So where are my controls? I lost my, there. Okay. So here are my, all the whiteboard controls. So this, I can select something with this button. This one allows me to do what I just did with, I can put text in there and type. You can also draw. So I'll come in here and pick a marker. So if I wanted to circle something, you just do it with your mouse. If I don't like that, I just click the eraser and click on it, it'll come off. If I wanted to like have a list and have people vote on it, then I would have them pick this stamp and check mark, and then they could come over here and say, my favorite button is the mute button. And then you could get multiple votes on that or something like that. So you can have, the whiteboard is a place for everyone to participate together. So I think this is really useful, and it's probably one of the most underutilized features of Zoom. So that's, and there's obviously different stamps. Spotlight is somewhat similar, like it's just a way to, it'll add my name. I don't know if you guys can see that. So it'll, if whoever clicks that arrow, it'll add their name, and so you know that it's that person selecting that thing. Again, we have the eraser, so we can go and take those off. Here's where you can change colors in format. You can change line widths. You can change your font and the size of your font. So lots of options there. You can also do the undo feature. So I just clicked that off with the eraser. Now I undid it, and then I redid it. So you can go back and forth as needed. You can clear the whole screen so that now there's nothing and you have a new whiteboard. Or you could save the whiteboard. You know, if there's something important going on and you wanted to save it, it would save it as some kind of image file here. So that's also an option. If I can move and show you, you can also do multiple whiteboards. So this, oops, like that. So this button down here on the bottom right will, every time you click it, you get a new whiteboard up. So you don't have to erase a whiteboard to start over or move on to something else. You can just click the next one and it'll go back and forth between the whiteboards there. So this is something I think you can just go into your Zoom account, start a meeting and play around with this if it's something that you want to use in the future. As a teacher, I use this, the whiteboard stuff quite a bit. So I went over that pretty quick. Any questions about the whiteboard stuff? A lot of this is you just kind of play around with it a little bit and take a little bit of time and it'll start to make sense to you. Okay.
Do you, Brother Dahlgren, do you have
Yeah.
to, you have to click on select first and then you go to like draw or stamp or?
No,
or do you
all
just click on it?
select. Yeah, all select is for is if you wanted to select a certain item. So I'm just gonna draw here. So if I wanted to select that, I would come in here and it would select that item. And then you could do it like I'm just gonna hit delete on my computer and I just deleted it. So select is just a way to grab something that's on the screen. You don't have to have select on. Each of these is its own function. Okay. Let's
I
see
have a
here.
question for
Yeah,
and for anyone on the bishopric. We received the link for the 17th Ward Zoom meeting. So how do we use that as far as scheduling a meeting so that it's for the 17th Ward functionality rather than using my own account to schedule a meeting, and in the case of the Sunday school, sending it to Doug Kuhn to send out to all the ward members? How do we use that 17th Ward link?
I am not sure how that works. I haven't played around with that.
I'm hoping someone from the bishopric will answer.
You know what? This is the bishop, Brother Weaver. So that is a professional Zoom account made available to each unit in the church. We can run 2 meetings back to back. Someone still has to create the meeting and send out the invite. I don't know much about how to. I know there's a lot of other options that come with that, breakout rooms and whatnot, but you know, the Sunday school could set up or create that meeting for you, or you could. We've talked about having the elders and Relief Society use that meeting because they can run 2 of them back to back. Sunday school, adult Sunday school definitely could. The youth classes are a little bit harder because we have usually multiples going at the same time. But that is available for church use to use, and I think it would be very beneficial. We don't have the time limit. We still have need to be done by a certain time, but it allows you to start the meeting a little bit earlier and have time for a closing prayer when you get to the end. I don't know if President Bailey has shared that with you, the login information, but
So Bishop, I have a
it's
question.
available for teachers. Yeah.
Is that something that is a singular login, or do we all have our own login into that account?
It has one singular login. So, and Brother Tyler Alverson, our technical specialist, set up that account. The state, administers or hands out those accounts. So, but there's just one username and login.
Gotcha.
But it is available to use for meetings, for classes, as we determine that it would be helpful. I don't know if that answers your question, Brother Weaver, but yes, we can use that for, like, it would be a perfect one for adult Sunday school classes, priesthood and Relief Society combined, youth and combined Elders Relief Society classes.
Great, thank you.
My guess is if it'll do multiple meetings at once, you just have to go in and schedule a meeting. And then, so at USU, we do that. We have multiple Zoom meetings going on at the same time under the same account, but we have we log in separately as individuals. So I'm not sure quite how that would work the other way.
Yep, and that's a good point. We would have to test that to see if two
Yep.
people can log in with the same login and username and set up two different meetings.
Let's see. I just have a couple more things. I'm gonna stop the whiteboard here. Back. So now I'm just back on my regular screen. So here, because I'm currently recording, it says pause, stop recording. Usually this just says record. If you want to record a meeting, you hit that and it'll ask you some questions. For example, where do you want the file? So this is going to create an MP4 or a video file. And where do you want it to go? Do you have a cloud account you want it to go to? You want to save it on the computer that you're using right now, that kind of thing. So it's fairly simple, and then it'll tell everybody in the meeting that this meeting is being recorded. So this is the closed caption feature. I've never used this, but apparently it, if people are having a hard time hearing or that kind of thing, it'll create a closed caption. But again, I've never done that. Breakout rooms, this is a feature of a paid account. So it sounds like the Word account will have this, but it's a way to have, you're basically having multiple meetings happening at the same time. And that may be what Bishop was referring to, is each breakout room becomes its own Sunday school, youth Sunday school or something like that. But that would take somebody, you have to have a host of the whole thing that's managing all those breakout rooms. I did want to go to reactions. So this button here allows you to, give a virtual clap, a thumbs up, a laugh, these different options. But I think for our purposes with classes, I think using it as a raised hand. So could somebody click theirs and just raise their hand, and I'll show you what it looks like on. So there's Brad Smith and Michelle. So there's some raised hands. So in your participant list over here, you'll see these raised hands, and that's how you know as the host to call on them. Now go back and click the reactions again, and it'll have a lower hand option, and then that'll take those away. Okay, so that's a very polite, easy way to try to get the attention of the host. Just remember, if you're hosting, you probably should have your chat window up and your participants window up to be able to notice those kinds of things as they're going on. And you can, I can take my chat window and pretty much make it so it's not covering my screen by just taking it off to the side. And often it'll just flash a notification across my screen as the host, and it should Brother Bailey's as the co-host now. But you may or may not notice those, and so it's easier to do that by having these windows up. The other thing I've noticed is when somebody raises their hand, it takes their name and puts it at the top of the list right under the host and co-host name. So it's a way of getting your attention that way. So I think that's a good feature to get folks used to. Sister Lloyd, you have your hand, you've left it up, and not sure if you were doing that as an example or you had a question. So from here on out, raised hands means there's a question. So so there you go on how to raise your hand and that kind of thing. So the only other thing I have to cover is like, well, I have a poll I want to do, and then if we need to, we can go to how do you schedule a meeting. But I am gonna do a poll quick. Since we now have a paid account, which I didn't realize that was happening, polls will be an option, and so I'm going to show you an example. So this is a poll that I made as I was setting up the meeting. I had the option to make a poll, so I'm going to send this out, and you'll answer this on your screen. So this will be one answer per computer. When so go ahead and click your answer, read through those, and then I'll show you how we can share that with the entire group. Again, I think this is a really cool feature for teaching, and allows us to poll our students to understand what they might be thinking. If you're like me, and especially with youth, they often are pretty quiet on Zoom, and for the most part, and this is a way to get folks who may not be as willing to, get on video and make a comment on Zoom. It's a way to get them to participate and get some of their interest. So I don't know if you can see, but it's telling me how many people. So we have 24 computers linked in, and so it's telling me how many of those have voted. Yeah. Is that Brent?
Hey,
Oh,
this is
that's President
Casey.
Cameron. Yeah.
A question on the polls, is that anonymous? Or do you see a name? I don't see people's names on there. I'm just curious if.
Yeah, so I
There's
made it anonymous. So you can choose whether names come up or not on that. If I was in a small class, like my Sunday school class, I've got maybe at the most 9 kids that come. I'm not going to generally make it anonymous unless I'm asking a question that I think needs that. Otherwise, I want to see who says what. But that's something, this is all, you have to set this up pre-meeting, and those are options when you're setting up your poll.
This is Brother Bailey. So how do I see the example poll in progress, but how do I actually participate in this poll?
I don't think you get to, because you're a co-host.
And how do you compose the questions for the poll?
It's all in the setup of when you're setting a meeting up. There's an option in your list of options, and I'll see if I can do that when I go into the set up a meeting. I don't know what I'm going to be able to do setting up a meeting when I'm in a meeting. That's been one of my problems. So I've got 22 out of 23. So I'm going to end polling. So you guys, and then I'm going to share results. So here's the results, and they should be showing up on your screen. So there you can kind of see the breakdown. Most of us feel like we're somewhere in it between intermediate and advanced, and the color there points out the question that got the most answers, the orange. And one of you thinks you should be doing this, not me. So that's how a poll works. Let's see if we can go. I'll show you how to do that on a meeting setup. Let's see, Sunday school's at 1, right? So we got to be careful with the time. Let's see. So I'm going to take this here. So this, here's a meeting schedule. You know, this is the screen that comes up when you first open your Zoom app. It obviously grayed out my join and share screen because it knows I'm in a meeting. So here's the options for scheduling a meeting, and I'll see if it has the advanced options.
There's also, David, where you have waiting room checked. If you
Yeah.
uncheck that, then it'll stop preventing you.
So I'm not seeing the option to set up polls here. Let me see if it'll allow me to do it through this account. Is everybody seeing so I'm in my USU web account now. So if I go over here to schedule a meeting, and I scroll down, oh no, it's not going to do it. Huh. Now it's not letting me do, oh, I know what it is. I have to set the meeting up. So let me just save this meeting. So now once your meeting is saved and you're managing it, if you go all the way to the bottom, let's see, and it's still not doing, there it is. At the very bottom, does everybody see that? There's a poll, create a poll. And I just hit add, and this is where I can go in and create the question. You can make it multiple answers or single answers, and your answers there. And then come down here, you can add another question that immediately follows, or if you want become a separate discussion item, then I would save this and then create another poll. Okay, I'm going to cancel out and not necessarily save this, but so to do the poll, you have to create the meeting and save it. You have to schedule it and save it, and then that poll option will be at the very bottom once you go into that meeting, that scheduled meeting. Any questions about that? Okay. So I think that's it. We have about 5 minutes for Sunday school to start. So.
Most helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Brother
Thank you,
Bailey, you want to?
Yeah. Yeah, we appreciate all the information, and for your research, your time, and helping us out. I'm sure there are other questions. And we'll end. I always come up with Carol Bailey on mine. I'm not sure how I changed that, my name on that, but
click on the brother, hover over your
do I
name.
click on participant
No, yeah, and hover over your name and hit the more button.
over my name. Oh, okay.
And see it says rename.
Hit the. Oh, okay.
And then you can rename yourself.
I'll have to. Okay, I'm not getting anything on it, but that's all right. But yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll close with prayer, and yeah, is Sister Elba